right. Well, namaste to everybody. Peace and humility and all of those wonderful, amazing traits that you should all be living in on a daily basis. How wonderful it is, all the things. It's been amazing. It's certainly been an amazing journey to get to this point. But it's even going to be more amazing as things go forward. There's so much going on, and I know I've said it, and for some of you that may be something that you can relate to, or maybe something you don't so much relate to. And there's no real right or wrong. It's just where you are and where you're at. So I wanted to share a couple of things. First off, I wanted to say to everyone that there's so much going on, and there is really maybe a lot more deception than people realize. All of the talk that's going on, I've never heard anybody say this, so I'm sure there is someone, but I'm going to share a piece with you that maybe will help ease your mind. It might make it worse. It's hard to say. But the reality of all of this is everything that everybody is talking about, as far as frequencies go and how you vibrate and all of that stuff, it's quite funny to me that it took me not very much time to find out what in the spirit realm is considered to be the highest frequency, right? So if frequency is important, don't you think you ought to know what creates the highest frequency? I don't know. It's a novel idea for sure. But it certainly seemed logical and reasonable to me that I should even know what the hell it is I'm supposed to become. And so the simplicity and the beauty of it is in the known spirit world, the two highest frequencies that you can possess, friends, are not the way you vibrate, they're the way that you are. And that's really kind of weird maybe for your mind. But of all of the vibrations and all of the frequencies that humans emanate from them, the highest one of all of them is authenticity. Okay? I've shared this, and I've tried to gently, a lot of principles that seem to slide by people very gently because sometimes they're quite harsh. And I know that it's not the other picture that people are painting, and if you're a person that needs that, then by all means get that, but you also get what comes with that. And that's a whole nother set of complexes all by itself. But the thing that the universe hates the most is fake. Okay? That's what the universe hates and detests the most, is fake. And so the highest thing, it's why the people like Carl Jung say, if you're in a situation and you feel an emotion and you can learn how to recognize the emotion before you react to the emotion, then you react to the emotion with control and discipline. That is to say, you can be angry and not be anger. One talking about the way that you perceive or you emanate, the other talking about who you are inside. And maybe that's already overblown over a lot of people's thinking process, but I'm sorrowful. They can read and recognize your frequency in a heart drop. The gods in the spirit world can, but we can even physically. And the physical frequency that emanates the highest frequency level is when you are being real. And it's quite funny because there's a lot of people that are saying a lot of words, but it's not real. They live lives, but it's not real. And so it was quite amazing that the universe hates fake because it's not fake. It is real, and its plans and its processes and its times and its fates and everything that is done on a daily basis is precision, perfection. There can be no room for incompleteness, and an incomplete frequency is a very low frequency, no matter what you think of yourself. And so secondly, to that frequency, the next highest one, and they really go together, and it'll get summed up in a nice little simple statement that I walk through the day with often, especially when things are going weird and you feel negative spirits from people and all kinds of crap that you have to live with every day that they may not even recognize they're putting off, or in many cases they do it intentionally. Either, it doesn't really matter which one it is, because it's all the same story. But the reality of the whole thing is next to authenticity, as far as frequencies we create, we emanate, the one highest to that is gratitude. And so if a person really believed at all that they had to control their frequency, they would be real and they would be thankful. And if you do those two, there's nothing on the face of this earth that can defeat you. Nothing can defeat those two frequencies. And most people have no clue. I say things because I believe them and they're true. They're authentic. That's why Source has spoken to me. Because I say what I believe, not what somebody else programmed me to say. And that resonates with the universe. That's why when you believe that you receive something, Yeshua said it, he gave us a dead giveaway, but he said, when you say and you believe, then. What was he saying? When you come to a place of authenticity where what you're saying matches with what you're resonating, then miracles are open to happen. That's why there aren't any miracles happening. Because you have 90% of people on the earth are fake. They won't even recognize who they are, much less how they could fix it. And that doesn't diminish anyone. But it is a reality. The world is starting to recognize it, and I guarantee you 2 years from now, you will be amazed what is all over YouTube. You won't hear none of that stuff about that woo-woo frequency crap. You're going to start watching the spirit guides are going to start falling away. And the reason for that is we are in a time that most people have no conscious understanding at all of what's coming. Okay? On Saturday, I told everybody that this is a 3-day time frame you have to get yourself right. And you are either going to adjust your nervous system to what's happening in the changes in the world, or you are going to get dragged by the back of your neck, kicking and screaming, and I immediately watch people start blowing up. Okay? Whether you guys know it or not, what you're living today and yesterday and the day before is the beginning of your reality for the next 12 years. We have started a 12-year cycle that we just finished. What you are emanating right now is what your life is going to be for the next 12 years. You think about that. Sorry, but the truth is here, man. It's just nobody wants to hear it. So, we're on a 12-year cycle. You might think about that, how you start this next 12-year cycle, because it's going to be wonderful, amazing, or brutal. And both are options, just so you know. So, we're in this time. There's massive change going on. There is a major conjunction going on with two planets. It has not happened in 36,000 years. It is going to be very powerful in July. So you can expect some things to go on in July. They're coming, I promise you. 2027 is going to be infinitely worse than what 2026 is. I guarantee you, you're going to see things you never believed you would ever see in your life. Nobody knows and nobody cares, and let's don't listen to the ancients who told us what was going to happen 5,000 years ago, because you might actually know what the hell's coming. But, you know, it's a reality statement. You can choose to. And Source says, he said to me, and I shared this, you tell them the truth, and then they either get to choose it and it's up to them. They're determining what happens to them. See, if you read the three, if you watched the thing about the three of the questions that you had, okay, there's a very big thing. And number one is, the first question is what did you take that wasn't given to you? And then it's really funny because actually, scholarship is exposing the 8 tablets of the underworld in the afterlife, and what's so amazing is everything that science is finding is exactly what they wrote 5,000 years ago. This is really becoming a Sumerian tablet and near-death experience and consciousness game that and both are validating each other. The modern science doesn't devalue the Sumerian. In fact, what it does is it proves that the Sumerian is correct. And so, okay, don't believe it, it's cool, whatever, okay? But the reality of it is there's a piece that I've started sensing and I've started watching, and it's happening all over the place. The Sumerian tablets were written before anything else that we possess. Now, they have found some writings and are starting to find writings that are pre-flood people. They were not the Sumerians, but they were the humans that the Anunnaki converted. They existed before the flood, and they wrote and left ancient cuneiform, even more so ancient than what the Sumerians found, and they call it the temple cuneiform, but here's how the cycle goes. Something is common, and then it becomes sacred. It happened with the Sumerians. As the Sumerians moved into Acadia, the Sumerian became only the language of the priest. So this isn't a new thing. It's been happening for hundreds of thousands of years. And so there was a class of people that they are now actually being able to verify that existed prior to the Sumerians. And they are the ones who gave us the temple, but it was actually would have been their common language. And so now we're talking 10 and 12,000 years ago, people were writing and building to amazing dimensions, things. And so when you see that, but here's what I'm seeing with my journey with the Sumerian text, that the universe, call it whatever you want to call it, actually, I believe inevitably it'll be proven that it is actually Anu, is the source. He is the monad. And I want to speak to a couple of those things because I've had some people ask me questions and they're a little confused about how this stuff works. So I'm kind of on a plane. Okay? The Sumerian text came to us as a gift to us and to all humanity who would find them. They have not been found and mostly have not been interpreted, and everything that's been interpreted they have found to be proven scientifically correct. So first off, we have a heck of a good basis. We have a fixed tablet that's 5,000 years old, and we have a truth that our science today cannot duplicate. You take that for whatever it means to you, but it's easy for me to see what up and down is. Okay? So here's what's going on. I am watching how, from the Sumerian writing, as you go through time, the reverberation of rewrite. And the story of Atrahasis, and it's really funny, all of the things that I've read from Sumeria, when they have a duplicate story, whether it's the Bible, and there's a lot of the Bible that is actually Sumerian if you knew the truth. As it gets further away from Sumer, the message has less and less and less content. Okay, we can go read the book of Genesis right now, and we can read the story of Noah, and the story of Noah has a third of the amount of information in it that the Sumerians gave us. Well, since, first off, that's 1,000 years older, so Noah couldn't have existed, first off. Secondly, Noah didn't live through the flood. Thirdly, there was a flood, but the dimensions of the boat were given openly to very precise dimensions, and the boat was not elongated, dear friend. The boat was a square. Okay? All of that was given by the Sumerians to I mess his name up, Pigra, however you say it, I'll say it next time and it'll be right. So all of that information was given to him about exactly, in fact, you find today in one of the pieces. But here's also another problem that we have. You have 10 million Christian Bibles, and they're all produced on a stamp mill. We have 700,000 tablets that they haven't even been able to interpret at this point. So all of the information that's coming out came out of tablets that have been researched and verified. Yes, there's lots of conflicts. Yes, some people believe that everything is a myth. That's certainly, if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. That's acceptable. But the reality of it is it's quite strange to me that I read these stories that are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years more ancient, and yet they have more information than the story that was supposedly written by the person or the people who experienced it. That's bull. I'm sorry, it just is. You don't get less information from a story than you got from the same story written 5,000 years earlier, and it tells you the very details. Okay? So, for all of you who may be wondering what it's really all about, I don't have any problems with understanding that it may seem very difficult to you, but I don't have a problem in correlating. Several things, I started to go back because several things since last week that have popped up. There's a picture of the Messiah in the Anunnaki. There's a lot of stuff that we have been taught that come out of these stories, and it's kind of pretty impossible for those things to be accidental. That there's so much of a correlation. That would be like saying that the epic that is written about for thousands of years before there is a Noah has more information than what supposedly the ones that recorded it, the Jews, and yet they don't have any information. They can't even tell you how big the boat was supposed to be. Okay? And much less many other things that went on. But what's even more sad is none of that had to do with the sin of people. So even that is a concoction. That wasn't why the flood. Humans were doing exactly what they're doing right now. And if you knew what humanity is doing to the world, we have people that have been arguing about it. We have people that have been talking. We have global warming, which is obviously happening. Is it happening for the reason that it was pitched by the political party? No, it's not. Killing cows and cows farting is not going to cause the detrimental damage that is being done to this earth right now. It is not causing that a guy who used to would have been in minus 40-degree weather in Antarctica just recently got back from a research, and he stood on top of a mountain in Antarctica in 60-degree weather in a t-shirt. Okay? You cannot believe that it's happening, and that doesn't change it 1 ounce. It is happening. Why? Because, and that's where this whole thing, nobody has the answers to what's coming except for the Sumerians. Nobody. I know of at least 10 different scenarios that are happening right now that were predicted 4,000 and 5,000 years ago. Right now. Planets that haven't been here in 36,000 years. And they're lining up exactly like they said they were going to. So if you want to believe that it's not true, then believe it's not true. I'm okay with that. But I'm not going to believe that crap. It's pretty obvious to me that there's something coming. And we're at the end of a measured cycle that has happened 6 times before, and every time that cycle happened, there was a flood, or there was an earthquake, or the pole has shifted. It's every one of them have already happened to this planet. You can go anywhere, and any person that knows anything about the pole will tell you the earth is already rotated 6 degrees off of where it used to be. But there's not going to be any pole shift. Edgar Cayce was a moron and a Christian drunk and laid on his couch and babbled crap, and it was never real. He just said those words because he didn't have any other words to say. I mean, it's really ludicrous, the mindset, but it is part of exactly what many people know is happening to the mind. This is happening now because of that. So you might not like that somebody says something about people being mindless or being mindful, but the reason that's being said is because that is the reality that people can observe if they choose to open their eyes. If you choose to keep your eyes closed, you won't see anything anyway, and it's not significant. But the point that I'm trying to make by that, I now have a better understanding about all of the afterworld. It's funny, Christianity, all you guys were set up, you're living your whole life trying to get to heaven, and it has never been written in anything but Christianity about people going to heaven. That did not exist and has not existed until the last 2,000 years. The people, when you die, whether it was the Egyptian Book of the Dead, whether it was the Sumerians, and they gave very line by line. What you guys saw is 1/10,000th of the information that's coming out about what you go through when you die. Okay, the little piece I gave you was one little piece to say, okay, well, if you don't have nothing else when you're standing here and they ask you these questions, if you don't have any concept, it's guaranteed what's going to happen to you. And so I desire to help people. That's the whole purpose of this, is that this is real. And if you want to continue to live in that thing and think that somehow that's going to save you, by all means, you should stay in that delusion. Okay, by all means, you should. You obviously can't deal with things that come and look you in the face and tell you that there's some stuff coming, and how you deal with it spiritually is going to determine whether you survive or not. That's not spiritual, that's physical. Okay? The things that are coming, Dolores Cannon said this before she died. The only people that will make it through are people who have come to the place where they learn what their frequency is. She just didn't bother to tell anybody what your frequency is. And so you think because you walk around and you're happy because you're mindless, you think that that's wonderful. Or maybe you just walk around and think that if you'll just be a good person and smile a lot, that somehow that'll fix everything. The problem is that would be great if it was true, but it's not. You can walk around and smile and be a bone cold liar, and the universe has nothing to do with you, while everybody thinks how spiritual you are. So the question should really be, for those who have a mind and reason, would be, what is it that the universe desires from us? And I had to find this from the manifestation people, because they always say the same thing. What you believe is what you are. What you believe is what you get. What you believe, and you know what? They're selling the truth. It is true. I had to go to a rock song to fix it. Whatever you believe you are is exactly to the right. That's what you are. And so people walk around and their whole life concocting this fake story about everything, and then they don't understand why that fake story keeps happening. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter whether it's work. It doesn't matter whether it's marriage. It doesn't matter whether it's children. It doesn't matter whether it's fun. It makes no difference. And so as we grab a hold of that, the beauty is supposed to be that you then, with knowledge, you can then choose and make a change. It wasn't just to learn it so you could go, oh yeah, I knew that. That was real good, man. I heard that. I got that down. I remember that. Oh yeah, your frequency is going to affect you. Nothing's going to help you. And I showed you in the text on Saturday, action is everything. Because you only do what you believe. That's why people are what they believe. That's why you can believe what they are, by how they behave. It's not difficult. We just read that 2 weeks ago. Same words. They're constant. This is constantly coming. Folks, the universe is trying to open the eyes of people, and there are many forces that are trying to keep that from happening. And so if it doesn't resonate inside of you that the universe is trying to get you to wake up, thank you, Brother Cliff, for the blessing, that maybe this is about trying to help people wake up. If that is in fact the case, then everything is different. Everything is different. You can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to the universe. The universe reads you from the inside. That's why Yeshua taught what he said. And he said, God knows every thought that you have. You don't even need to worry about saying the words. There's a piece of that, because we will again go back to consoling through telepathy. Well, telepathy is the epitome of knowing what somebody's thinking without needing words. And so we're already moving back into that. The CIA's been playing with telepathy for hundreds of years. As long as the CIA's been around anyways, they started on this telepathy. They've written papers that say, yes, in fact, humans have the basic ability, but they're not spiritually mature. So they can't, their minds are not powerful enough. Well, what's coming with the upgrade that's coming, and it is, they are going together. The chaos is completeness. Okay? Just as the world is going to get worse and more chaos, the completeness of connection with Source is also, for those who do so, is going to get stronger. So it's very clear, it's very open, it's very right there for anyone who's willing to open their eyes, heart, and mind and to be able to see it. This is not a time that has been in the past for quite a few thousand years, folks. This is not a time like the past. It is a time where the earth, it doesn't matter which one that you go to, whether you read the Sumerian text and then you go read the Babylonians and you say, oh, well, that's exactly that story. Or you read the Akkadian and it's that story, and you read the Babylonian and it's that story, and then they read the people down in the Yucatan Peninsula and that's the same story, and the same creatures keep coming in, and oh, well, it's all just mythology. Really? You have 7 different classes of people who all told you they saw these beings, and yet all you can do is call it myth. We're not talking about Greece. I don't know of one written book necessarily mainstream where somebody says that the gods came down and walked among us and we as mortal humans interacted with them every day. And the Sumerians clearly say that for thousands of years. And what's even more funny is that the Anunnaki, who are the creators of this branch of humanity, are not the ones that created this earth, nor are they the ones who started the building processes here. That was before them. It was here when they came to this place. So it really does. They've really done humanity a massive disservice by convincing and brainwashing people to really, you don't need a lot of knowledge, things didn't happen and that's all fake. So all I need to do is focus on what I'm being programmed to right now. And that's very sad, but it is very, very factual. It is very true for the society that we live in. And so if the furthest story back is where something started, and it has one or multiple later concoctions of the same thing. One of the things I found is quite funny. We read in the Nag Hammadi about the archons and all the things they do. Those writings, actually, dear friend, 5,000 years before Yeshua lived on this earth, those writings and all of that feasting on energy, and it would really boggle your mind how detailed they were about what that whole system is. And it existed then, and it exists now. It happens all the time. Iran is part of it, and it's going to happen more and more. In fact, right now, the stage is being set for people who have no understanding about their power. The stage is being set for one of the greatest harvests that's ever been. Because how these beings harvest you, it's the archonic picture is more of a single picture. And that's why I'm pretty sure that it is a corruption, it is a rewrite of what was written thousands of years earlier. But the archonic system isn't about you individually human. I don't say that doesn't happen, and Yeshua may have very well been right at a personal level. The Sumerians wrote of that as a worldwide level. That's why we have peace, and then we have war, and then we have destruction, and then you get time to rest, because the rest is to prepare you for the next event that they're going to harvest, which is usually the next war. And that cycle's been going on as long as we've lived on this earth. It's quite noted by many scholars how amazing it is that somebody like the Sumerians could grow up, write all of these amazing things, do all of this amazing work, create all of these structures that humans can't even create today, and then they disappear. Well, that's not really as weird a thing as you might think it is, because it's happened with every society that's ever existed. And actually, we are at the level of being at the end of the long period for that. And so what happens is you have war, you have prosperity, you have seasons for people to recover, and then you have the next events that come. Cataclysmic events also. There was a massive harvest at the flood. All of those people's fear and all of those people's anguish and all of those people, and it's all of those things. It's so funny. You being depressed is a feeding time for these spirit forces. You walking around and they feed on you like nobody's business. And that's what Yeshua was giving us. Not the whole story. He was giving us a personal story of how these spirits work. And they ride on the back of your neck like a monkey and hold your ears, and you let them destroy you while you blame it on someone else. You're the problem because you refuse to get them off of you. But tell someone that and they become offended. What do? There's nothing you can do. You can't help people that don't want help. They say they want help until the help comes, and it's like, I don't want to invest myself in that. I don't want to work that hard. I don't want to think that hard. I want it easy. And there is no easy in this life except destruction. And you don't have to do anything to come to that. So, if in fact it is true, and it is, and it's going to continue to be proven out for those who are starting to open in the perception, because that's what's happening. The universe will release perception to those people who are authentic and who in their heart want to know what the true truth is. The universe will open your eyes of perception. You can be next to 500 people who are playing like they want to know what the truth is, and they will never see it, and you will see all of it that you can stand and more. And so it is based on the authenticity of you. What is coming for the end of humanity is going to be based on the authenticity. Someone who tells you the truth, even when they have to pay horrible prices and be hated and people walk away, those people have something that's worth value. That's why people don't like them. Because they don't want to know what truth is. They want to know, how can I accomplish something and do nothing? And it doesn't exist. So, good luck. I hope you find what you're looking for. But I suspect you'll be singing the song that you still haven't found what you're looking for. So, good luck. That's all I know about that. So, I wanted to share that with you. I think it's very important if you'll pay attention, if you do any reading and studying, or even as we go through the text that I'm going to go through, because these things move and they blow up so huge. The eight different steps that you go through when you die has nothing to do with the heaven. It has everything to do with you going to the pit, which is where they concocted the story of hell, because they knew from the Sumerian tablets that all people go to the underworld, not to the upper world. That was all known. When they concocted Christianity, it was known. The underworld is where people go. That's where the next reality is. That's where you make the decisions about what's going to happen to you. And there are some decisions that bring not really very good outcomes. That's why it's so important. That's why they wrote about it 5,000 years ago. That's why it's important for people to speak today about it. Because yet again, even after you die and leave this body, you have nothing but decisions in front of you that you're going to make. And they determine how much you suffer or how much you enjoy. And both are available to every person. Okay? It is all totally choice. You totally choice. You chose it. And that's really profound. Yes, most people don't want to hear that. So, the Atrahasis book 3 starts out like this. I'm actually a couple of paragraphs before. And they're coming in, they've had the meeting, all of these things have gone on, the people have been sick, they've gone through the plague, they've gone through the sickness. Those are fates that were predetermined for humanity, for the earth. There are many things that are already predetermined. The Anunnaki were the speakers of fate. And I want to share that because it came out in some of the stuff that I've shared. And for some of you, you may be of the school that believes there is no fate. I don't necessarily know that I believe there is a fate, but now I'm starting to understand that maybe the definition for fate isn't exactly what it should be. And so what the Anunnaki do is they determine, and whether that be from the stars, and it's very possible in many cases that is where this information comes from, just as all the stuff that I've been talking about, the stars are moving to what I've said to you today. It's not maybe. They are. Planets that haven't done this and were written about 5,000 years ago are doing that. There's no argument about that. The planet has never done this in 12,000 years, and it is now doing it. And it says right here in the Sumerian writing that when it does this, this is what's coming for humanity. Oh, well, don't listen to that. That's fake. So, when we go along on that path of things being predestinated, I'm not quite sure, I've been kind of hung on this, that this isn't really, it wasn't the predestination in the form Christianity sold, and it wasn't predestination even in the way that schools or society taught you. I believe that they read the stars, they tell you what is coming, and that is the fate. They didn't set it, they simply were the carrier of what's coming. And then the end part of the whole scenario is what you do in that situation. Right now, what is coming forth? What are you going to do, whether you believe it or don't, when the earth rolls? There's not going to be any way for you to hide from it. You're going to move thousands of miles in milliseconds. Put that one in your pipe and smoke it. It hasn't happened. We have proof that this earth has rotated over because of a weak magnetic field, and we now have the weakest magnetic field, and changes going on in the core of the earth, and the rumblings that the Sumerians wrote about that are going to happen into the earth prior to all of that. It's all happening, but oh, I'm sorry, we shouldn't trust that. They only told us that 5,000 years ago, and it's only happening, so why would you trust that? It's actually pretty ludicrous if you want to know the truth. And so it wasn't difficult for me to understand what was being said when he said this is the truth. It's not the first time that's been said, just so you know. Before I ever walked into Christianity, those same words were spoken to me. Every word that I have spoken is true. The only question I've had for 30 years now is which ones are his. And that's, my friend, is a different journey. So, it's all good. It's all wonderful. We're all loved. You can go to Apsu, and you can make the right decisions. You're going to get stripped. They're going to take your pride, your ego. If you have those things, it's not going to bear well with you. So really, you would do well to try to fix those problems beforehand. But you're going to get stripped down to the essence, the authenticity of what you truly are. And you may be this big, or you may be this big. It's up to you. Who are you? Who are you? And of course, they're not asking because they need you to answer. They're asking because they want you to answer. They already know the answer to that, just so you know. Many pieces about that recently. And so, and Adad made his rain to pour down and filled the pasture land, and clouds veiled. Do not feed his people, and did not give Nasaba's corn luxury for people to eat. Then the god grew anxious as he sat. The god here is Enki. I have to tell you, I see a great correlation, and as you go on, as I read and as you see Enki, I said this, but I'm really becoming almost more convinced about it than ever. I am not sure that the spirit that is called Yeshua, the spirit that is called Christ, I am not quite sure that is not the spirit of Enki. Enki is exactly what Yeshua was when Yeshua lived on this earth. Enki, when he walked this earth, was exactly the same as Yeshua is. And so what you're going to find is everything from the Sumer forward, everything is a write-off of what the Sumerians taught. It's all just a rewrite. It's not real. There are real pieces in it, but every person took the Sumerian narrative and corrupted it to fit their ideology. And so, he says, then the god grew anxious as he sat in the god's assembly, and worry gnawed at him. If you know the story at all about this, Anki broke the rule. They had a council meeting. He voted in the council meeting to obey whatever the council ruling was. The council ruling, Anu said that we have been working them hard, and they are making a lot of noise, and I can't sleep. He didn't say that, but that's the extension of what Enlil is talking about. He uses that about sleep, and that they're a rabble and they're making all of these horrible noises, and we're ready for the earth to be quiet again. And so that is the whole concept. Has nothing to do with sin, has nothing, all of that stuff was all added. None of that is the reason this earth was flooded. It was flooded because humans couldn't figure out how to keep themselves straight. That's really a lot closer to the truth than the other situation. And they're still doing the same now. That's why what's coming is coming. And so it's been exactly the same cycle every 3,600 years or whatever it is. 7,000 years, I'm not clear of right now, because there's so much stuff that's going on. And so the gods grew anxious as he sat, this is Anki, in the God's assembly, and worry gnawed at him. And one of the things I really love, if you remember back earlier last week when I read, when all of this stuff happened, you actually find Enlil, who is this warrior god who rules this plane that we live on, and we find him crying in a council meeting. I've read some other documents that are actually first-person accounts that a scribe took from Enlil. So Enlil was a real being. Anki was a real being, okay? They came from someplace else to this earth, and they created and siphoned energy off of. Zechariah Sitchin came to the conclusion that they were from the planet Nibiru, and that the planet Nibiru was having psychological and ecological problems, and that if they would mine gold and turn gold into powder and throw the gold up in the air, that it would block the sun and it would fix. And so that's Zechariah Sitchin's account of the Sumerian tablets and why the Anunnakis were here. I think you'll probably find that what I said is closer to the truth. They came here to harvest energy. They created, they built energy, they built places for humans to exist, taught them how to exist, how to sustain themselves, gave them the ability to progress, to reproduce. Not all of the copies of humans, of the seven, not all of those were capable of reproduction. Not all of those were capable of thinking. Not all of those were capable of talking. So there was a lot of work, tens of thousands of years before they got to number 8. And just so you know, the text reads that number 7 wasn't broken. We were made, and nobody's really talking about this, and I think it's going to be cool, because we were made, and there is something different about Homo sapiens than there was the predecessors to us. There was something that was added into us that made us different. That's why the Anunnaki left after the flood, because they expected for us to take care of ourselves. And of course, here we are, humanity falling to pieces, 8 billion people. How does somebody pull a number from 5,000 years ago of 8 billion people when there isn't even a numbering system like the number system that we use? How do they get to that and put it in an exact time frame with star features that haven't happened in 12,000, 30,000, 60,000 years? There are all things happening in all of those time frames that are correlating around the next 10 years. And so I just have to ask myself, well, how could somebody know all of this stuff? And then it's not enough to write it, but then 5,000 years later, science and computers have to prove that it's right, and it's actually more right than what the computers can prove. Does that not make you wonder if there's not something yet still amiss? Maybe Christianity wasn't the only lie. Maybe more of society is a lie than you have any clue of. Maybe the behaviors that you've been taught and allowed yourself to become, maybe those were actually lies as well, and you never were expected to be what that is. In fact, these were men of great renown, so we're told from the Bible. The Nephilim, the ones who came and, get it? They came, and what were they? They were God and human. I could never imagine where that principle would come from. It's really sad, folks. It's really quite sad. Always has been, always will be. So, Enki has made this mistake. He made an oath. He unfortunately made a mistake that he came to love the beings he created, and now he's going to have to pay a price for that, which would really give humans that have any concept, because even if this is mythology, it doesn't change the principles that the mythology were intended to impose on you. It doesn't matter what you do, because what Enki did, as far as I'm concerned, was right, but that didn't change that he got punished for it. He still got punished for it. He was an outcast from them. In fact, was broken into pieces, and he is still in captivity on this earth. The 8 billion people is one of the signs that have to happen for him to be freed again. The spirit of Enki, the creative God of humans. And so then the god grew anxious as he sat. In the god's assembly, worry gnawed at him. Enki grew anxious as he sat in the god's assembly. They were furious with each other. Enki and Enlil, we the great Anuna, all of us, agreed together on a plan. Anu, God the Father, and Adad were to guard the above, and I was to guard the earth below. Where you went, which is the Absu, which is where the dead go, is the Absu. And you were to undo the chain and set us free. You were to release produce for the people. You were to exercise control by holding the balance. So you see a piece here. Enki not only created humanity, he was the holder of the balance of the whole world. And he said, and the warrior Enlil says, you imposed your loads on man, you bestowed noise on mankind. So coming from Enlil's perspective, Enki gave a being, and what the Anunnakis wanted was a thinking but extremely controllable robot. And Enki gave them attributes that caused them to not be able to be that. And you imposed your loads on man, you bestowed noise on man, you slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. And I've said it in the past, friends, it's really sad in our society how little the value of intelligence is given. It is really sad. It is very sad, in fact. And so to them, intelligence was divine. It is still. It doesn't matter whether you see it or know it or believe it. Maybe you don't perceive it because you're not in a place to be able to perceive. There's lots of reasons why people get hung up and they never see the things that the universe is showing to other people. And it's always about who they are as a person. And so you slaughtered a god together with his intelligence. So would it have been better, Enlil, if I'd have just swallowed him and and we had taken his intelligence away from him? You notice you don't see any asking of that question. He says, you must and create a flood. It is indeed your power that shall be used against your people. You agreed to the wrong plan, Enki. Have it reversed. Let us make far-sighted Enki swear an oath, and Enki made his voice heard. And spoke to his brother gods, why should you make me swear an oath? Why should I use my power against my people? Now you notice there that he places value, you see, it's actually a very strong shift. When you see him collect them, it's quite obvious that he has taken on the overseeing, the creation. So when you hear about the creation God, if you're talking about humanity, it is Enki. And he loved them, and he cared about them, and he protected them. And for every one of us, I don't know why that seems to bother so many people. It made me happy as could be. I pray and Enki speaks to me today. Why should you make me swear an oath? Why should I use my power against my people? The flood that you mentioned to me, what is it? I don't even know. I can't even figure, what is this flood and why are you doing it? Could I give birth to a flood? That is Enlil's kind of work. Let him choose. Let Shalad and Hanish march ahead. Let Erich pull out the mooring poles. Let Ninurta march and let him make the weirs overflow. So, in other words, empower these people to go do your flood. I'm not that kind of person. It really is a battle that you see going on today between authentic people and inauthentic people. It's the same battle that's going on between high frequency people and low frequency people. It's the exact same thing. It's just how all of this has been. And I do believe it existed then, and I do believe it's the same thing today. It still exists exactly the same. There was a division amongst the gods. And there were gods that were kind and benevolent and loving towards humans and interfaced with them and talked with them. And there were others who saw us as nothing but things. And so he says, there's some lines missing, and he says, the assembly do not listen to. The gods gave an explicit command. Enlil, and that says Enlil if you're reading this, Enlil and Enlil are the same person, performed a bad deed to the people. Atrahasis made his voice heard and spoke to his master. And I have to tell you guys, one of the most beautiful things in the world is, because I know some of you have been struggling, I don't really know about that whole connection and how all of it works. I don't have a problem in being honest about that. I just simply know that there are coming throughs of things, and they bring quite peace, and they bring clarity that what this is all about, and that what's coming is really coming. We're in a kind of a limited time frame. And those people that hear, they were intended to hear. And those who can hear, they will be exactly what happened to the others that couldn't hear. And so the whole picture here about the flood narrative, not including what Noah's was, because that was all supposed to be about God being angry because of sin. Sin never entered this picture. Is there sin? Yeah, sin is mostly the stupid stuff you do to destroy yourself. That's sin. But when you're doing it to destroy yourself and you're doing it to other people, you not only sinned then against you, you sinned against them. And outside of that, that is pretty much the scope of what sin is, and everything that is sin will be summed up inside of that. How you treated yourself and how you treated other people. It never goes away. Okay? Love your neighbor like you love yourself. You don't, and you're a liar if you say you do. It's that simple. It's always been the plan for humanity. And so Atrahasis made his voice heard, and he spoke to his master. Indicate to me the meaning of the dream, and let me find out its portent. Anki made his voice and heard. So here you have a God specifically speaking with Atrahasis. Suda, oh my gosh. Anyway, he has a different name in Sumerian. It's the same person. You say, I shall find it out in bed. Make sure you attend to the message I shall tell you. And then Anki immediately turns because, see, he's kind of in a dilemma. He's already messed up and he's been caught, but he doesn't want to make it worse by now turning around and slapping the council in the face again. And now he's going to give the instructions not only about what he did to these humans that the others didn't like, he's now going to give to humans the instructions for defying what it is that the council has decided on, which is to flood and destroy humans. We'll create another one and we'll start all over. Those are obviously not working out. And so he says, well, listen constantly to me. Read Hut. So here you get a picture of what our intrinsic power is when we speak to things and they must bend to us. Okay, I know many of you may not even have the ability, because of the damage of Christianity, to be able to believe about being a creator. I see the creative more every day. It's just it's just perceptions, it's pieces, it's things that are said, it's ways that the universe is protecting me. Marianne said the other night we went to my son's house and we're driving on the road, and Marianne said she could have reached her arm out the door and touched that deer. It was so close, and yet somehow two deer completely miss our car. She talked about it for days. She couldn't imagine how on earth we possibly missed those deer. I laughed. I know exactly how we missed those deer. Friends, it's only when you begin to believe the things that have been given to you, and there are the real power. There ain't none of these woo-woo people. I don't need to call up no spirit guide. I already have inside of me whatever your perceived archon spirit guide is trying to sell you. And really, it should be said, manipulate you. But until that reality comes alive in you, you're just going to continue on the same rat race you're on. We are powerful. We have creative power inside of us, so much so that the Anunnaki left this planet and left us to ourselves because they were concerned about what we were capable of accomplishing. So, he's speaking to this wall, this reed hut, and he says, listen to my voice, reed hut. Listen to it. I'm going to tell you some things, and then you're going to do what you're supposed to do. And Anki does this and leaves, and as he lays down, Atrahasis lays down in his bed next to the wall of the reed hut, as you'll find, and the reed hut begins to tell him the message. Anki did not have to tell him directly. And so, reject possessions and save living things, the boat that you build. I'm sorry, I jumped. Anki made his voice heard. He spoke to his servant. You say, I should find out in bed. Make sure you attend to the message I shall tell you. Wall, listen constantly to me. Reed hut, make sure you attend all of my words. Dismantle the house and build a boat. Reject possessions and save living things. The boat that you build, the roof is like the Apsu. Well, the Apsu is the afterworld, the eternal, where you will go and spend eternity is in Apsu. Either a dry, dusty, waterless place or a place full of love and full of light, and you bathe, and this has come out in many near-death experiences. The pictures that the Sumerian painted on tablets is exactly what people are telling. They have thousands of them now, and they match and correlate 100% to what was told to us about the 8 things that happen when you have a near-death experience. It is an 8 if you actually die and walk across that field, because you don't ever come back, and that's the end of the story. So, the roof it like the Apsu, so that the sun cannot see inside it. Make upper decks and lower decks. The tackle must be very strong, the bitumen strong to give strength. I shall make rain to fall on you here, a wealth of birds, a hamper of fish. He opened the sand clock and he filled it. And he told him the sand needed for the flood was 7 nights' worth. So here's where you get a completely different picture from what they sold you. There was no 40 days and 40 nights. This flood happened and was over with in 7 days' time. Okay? 7 nights worth of sand was the time that it was going to take to do this. Is it possible that that's 7,000 years? Possible. It doesn't fit historically, since they have found the layer of silt at 10,000 BC. So it's kind of hard to argue with 12 foot of silt. And so the tackle must be strong, the bitumen strong to give strength. I shall make rain on you here, a wealth of birds, a hamper of fish. He opened the sand clock and filled it. He told him the sand needed for the flood was 7 nights' worth. Atrahasis received the message. He gathered the elders at his door. Atrahasis made his voice heard and spoke to the elders. My God is out of favor with your God. Anki and Enlil have become angry with each other. They have driven me out of my house, since I always stand in awe of Anki. He told me of this matter. I can no longer stay in. I cannot set my foot on Enlil's territory again. I must go down to the Apsu and stay with my God. This is what he told me. The elders, the carpenter brought his axe, the reed worker brought his stone, a child brought bitumen, the poor fetched what was needed. Everything there was, pure ones, fat ones, he selected and put on board. The birds that fly in the sky, cattle of the Shalcan, wild animals of the open country, he put on board. He invited his people to a feast, and he put his family on board. And they were eating and they were drinking, but he went in and out. He could not stay still or rest on his haunches. His heart was breaking. He was vomiting bile, because that's how affected what this was causing to him, because he knew what was coming. That's why when it was said to me that you tell them the truth and most won't believe it, and you let them die on their own, has nothing to do with you anymore. You know, it's funny that the third of those says that the worst sin you can do is make people believe what you believe. Well, I don't believe you can do that in the first place, because that's always a choice. But telling someone the truth is not making someone do something. If it was, people would do a lot of things differently, but they don't. When you tell people the truth, usually rebellion creeps up and they do whatever, even if it's destructive, against what you said, simply because you said it. I've watched that thousands of times. Well, if you'd do this, your life would be better. Yeah, that might be. And they go do the exact opposite thing, and then they suffer. And then they want somebody to feel sorry for them because they made a stupid decision and destroyed their life. If you want to destroy your life, you're free to. By all means, do so. I think you should experience that if that's what your experience is about. But on the other side, if that's not what your experience is about, then there is a way to keep out of that and to live an abundant life with not 2 pennies in your pocket. So they were eating and they were drinking, loading. Father, he's not doing so well. He's having these problems because he cares. The face of the weather changed, and a Dodd bellowed from the clouds. When he, Atrahasis, heard his noise, bitumen was brought, and he sealed his door. While he was closing up his door, a Dodd kept bellowing from the clouds. The winds were raging even as he went up and cut through the rope, and he released the boat. Anzu was tearing at the sky with his talons and the land. I have found the Epic of Anzu, which is actually in every picture that you've seen. If you've seen any that have to do with Sumerian, it is the eagle and the lion god that existed. Anzu was tearing at the sky with his talons, and the land he broke, and the flood came out. The Kasuyu weapon went against the people like an army. No one could see anyone else. They could not be recognized in the catastrophe. The flood roared like a bull, like a wild ass screaming. The winds howled, and the darkness was total. There was no sun. And we get like white sheep and of the flood, and then the noise of the flood. And an Anu went berserk. So now God the Father, if you would, is sitting up here and he's watching all of this. And when once it begins, then all of a sudden he goes berserk. He's freaking out. And the gods and his sons before him, as for Nintu, the great mistress, her lips became encrusted with rime. The great gods, the Anuna, stayed parched and famished. The goddess watched and wept. Midwife of the gods, wise Mami. Now remember, Mami is the one who helped Anki do the creation. Let daylight, let it return. However could I, in the assembly of gods, have ordered such destruction with them? Enlil was strong enough to give a wicked order. Let Tururu, he ought to have canceled, like Tururu, he ought to have canceled that wicked order. I haven't yet had the time to go research Tururu, but I'm suspecting we're going to find a time, maybe in possibly in more ancient history, where this Tururu pops up. If I find out, I'll share that with you. Like Tururu, he ought to have canceled that wicked order. I heard their cry leveled at me, against myself and against my person. Beyond my control, my offspring have become like white sheep. As for me, how am I to live in a house of bereavement? My noise has turned to silence. Could I go away up to the sky and live as in a cloister? What was Anu's intention as decision maker? It was his command that the gods, his sons, obeyed. He did not deliberate. He sent the flood. He who gathered the people to catastrophe. Nintu was wailing, without a true father, have given birth to the rolling sea, so that they could clog the river like dragonflies. They are washed up like the raft on a bank. They are washed up like a raft on the bank in open country. I have seen and I have wept over them. Shall I ever finish weeping for them? She wept, she gave vent to her feelings. Nintu wept and fueled her passions. The gods wept with her for the country. She was sated with grief. She longed for beer in vain. Where she sat weeping, there the great gods sat too. But like sheep, could only feel their windpipes with bleeding. Thirsty as they were, their lips discharged only rime of famine. For 7 days and 7 nights, the torrent, storm, and flood came on. And he put down and he provided food. Atrahasis has now put down. The gods smelt the fragrance, gathered like flies over the offering, and when they had eaten the offering, Nintu got up and blamed them all. Whatever came over Anu, who makes the decisions? Did Enlil dare to come for the smoke offering? Those two who did not deliberate but sent the flood, gathered the people to catastrophe. You agreed the destruction, now their bright faces are dark forever. Then she went up to the big flies, which Anu had made, and he declared before the gods. His grief is mine, my destiny goes with his. You must deliver me from evil and appease me. Let me go out in the morning. Let these flies be the lapis lazuli of my necklace, by which I may remember it daily, forever. The warrior Enlil spotted the boat and was furious with the Agigi. We, the great Anuna, all of us, agreed together on an oath no form of life should have escaped. How did any man survive the catastrophe? Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Enlil. Who but Enki would do this? He made sure that the reed hut disclosed the order. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the great gods. I did it in defiance of you. I made sure life was preserved. Exact your punishment from the sinner and whoever contradicts your order. I have given vent to my feelings. Enlil made his voice heard and spoke to far-sighted Enki. Come and summon Nintu, the womb goddess, confer with each other in the assembly. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the womb goddess Nintu. You are the womb goddess who decrees destinies to the people. Let 1/3 of them be, and let 1/3 of them be. There's a piece that sounds eerily close to this in the book of Revelation, and I thought it was kind of interesting, a correlation at how that concept, how that mindset of the third, of course 2/3 makes a sixth, is not in that level. Everything is divisible by 6 in the Sumerian, which is why we have 360 degrees and all of those things that still are correlating that are Sumerian that we use. He says, in addition, let there be 1/3 of the people amongst the people, the woman who gives birth yet does not give birth successfully. Let there be the Pasutu demon amongst the people to snatch the baby from its mother's lap. Establish Ubabtu into Egistu, woman, they shall be taboo and thus control childbirth. So I want you to get this. If you've done, I think there's a piece here. If it is, it is. If it isn't, it isn't, because it doesn't matter, because the thing is still happening. It's just an observation. But I am amazed at how many women in America, and it may be happening all over the world, but how many women are not being able to give child anymore. The biggest fear, Elon Musk hit it. Nobody's talking about it but Elon. And Elon said the biggest fear is that humanity is not going to survive. He said that 10 years ago because of low survival rates. Well, we have women that aren't getting pregnant by the hundreds, thousands, and we have men who can't get a woman pregnant by the time they're 18 years old. You think that's accidental? The testosterone numbers of the mass majority of men 30 and over is at the level of death. And it does affect the way you think. It affects the way you function. It affects the way your mind works. And so when you are low on testosterone, your mind moves to a feminine mind. And so they know that, and they really aren't trying to do that much about it. But there is help and resolve for people who have a desire to. And so these women were not allowed to give birth successfully. Let this Pasitu, demon amongst the people, to snatch the baby from its mother's lap, establish Ugbagtu, 3 classes of women who are taboo, and thus control childbirth. How we sent the flood, but a man survived the catastrophe. You are the counselor of the gods. On your order I created conflict. Let the Agigi listen to this song in order to praise you, and let them record your greatness. I shall sing of the flood to all people. Listen. The end, the 3rd tablets, when the God instead of man, and there's quite a few lines missing there on the tablet that were destroyed, so we don't get to see the whole colophon. For the 3 tablets, the hand of Apigaya, junior scribe, the month, Ayar, and who the king was. So the closing of this tablet has all of the information of who it is that recorded it. These aren't just archaic things. I know for maybe some people they seem quite archaic, but these things are really more real world than I think that's the biggest thing the scholars freak out about. That's why they read some of these things and they go, this is horrible. This is if this is true, I can't tell you how many times in the last 5 months I've heard that. If this is true, humanity is going to destroy itself. So unfortunately, I don't think that it's the Anunnaki doing things. I think the Anunnaki knew what we were going to do, and because that set the stage for fate. Fate is, there is an opportunity for humans to actually put off. There has been one that they know of where an event did not happen, and that typically comes from, if you would, the frequency. How would it be like, so even if you don't like what I said, and even if you disagree with it, and you think that some spiritual BS is what it is to have high frequency, you can smile and tell everybody the world's wonderful while inside you're a horrible, despicable human, instead of being an honestly true, good human, which is what the whole deal's supposed to be about. And if you encountered that, what do you think it would look like if all people were authentic? What do you think would happen if you took all of the people who do things dishonestly, lie, steal, cheat, manipulate? What if you took all of those people off the face of the earth? What would the earth look like? And what do you think humanity would look like? I think it would be a very peaceful place. Because then you could honestly look at somebody and go, oh, okay, I don't necessarily understand you, but I see who you are, and then know how to navigate that. You would stop 90% of the wars. That's what's happening. When people run from me, I don't worry about it because I'm authentic. I'm walking in my truth, doing what my Creator has asked me to do. I don't care what happens outside of that, because no matter what happens, it's part of the plan. Okay? He's asked me some really shocking questions lately, and I didn't want to answer them, because answering them was really difficult. But nonetheless, it still is. It still is, folks. The things that are coming are still going to come whether you believe them or don't. All that's being offered to all humanity is an opportunity to see what's coming, and maybe through the seeing, then humanity as a whole would rectify themselves and would move into a place of being authentically aligned with what God was. It really seems wonderful to me. I don't know how anybody hears that truth and is discouraged, depressed, or angered, but it happens all the time. It's really funny to me to watch people because the perception is growing massively. It's like no more bullshit. The bullshit's over with. Okay? That's exactly the plan. And you may not be hearing it everywhere right now, but I promise you this message is going to take this world over because people are tired of fake. And so I hope that you're one of those who are walking in true authenticity. Doesn't mean anything other than you just really are what you are. And you're okay with that. It's okay to tell people the truth even if they don't like it. That's real. If I ask one person that I'm looking at, if I ask them a question, I guarantee you that they're going to tell me what they believe. I don't like it all the time. In fact, sometimes I don't like it at all. But it's still the truth, and I respect that because I know that that comes from inside. That is authenticity. And so when you're in an environment where playing a game and being part of the matrix is what people think is cool, to me, it's abhorrent. I don't want to play no stupid games. Okay? Be a man and grow up, or be a woman and grow up and do what's right. And everybody would get along. My son told somebody that we love very much. He said, all that Dad wants from you is just simply to do what's right. Doesn't take anything else for humans except to do what's right. But obviously that doesn't resonate with lots of people. So it's good. It's all part of the plan and part of the purpose, and those things will be beneficial in the long run. But on the other side, I do hope that you will understand, man, we have an opportunity for a great journey. It's going to be with lots of conflict, and there are going to be lots of people that turn against you, and you just got to go with that. I don't say it doesn't matter. I just simply say you can't do anything about it. People are what they are. And so as you go along, you have to find that peace. And as you do, things become much clearer. The universe wants you to know that Anki protected us, not so we couldn't exist, so we could exist. It is the perfect picture that was presented to you in the Bible, only the real picture. And so peace to each and every one of you. I hope that you will just ponder and think, use your mind and think about some of these things. And remember, authenticity and gratitude will always elevate you higher than any other thing. Shalom and namaste.